Hello, and welcome to today's session, the Culturally Responsive Classroom, Building Positive Relationships with Students. I'm Kimberly Wallace.
I'm Devin Aucoin.
I'm Brentela, Daugherty.
And I'm Dina, Osborne.
And we want to thank you for joining us today. We are a part of Durham Public Schools District Beginning Teacher Mentor Team. And again, welcome to today's part of the North Carolina Beginning Teachers Summit, Culturally Responsive Classroom. So today, during this session, we're going to identify components of culturally responsive pedagogy, understand the importance of creating relationships with all students, and also exploring the ways to build and maintain those relationships with students. With this session, you were provided links to supplemental material. I want to direct you to your participant guide that you should have received in advance. This has been provided in order for you to be able to jot down your notes or ideas or any questions that you may have. The guide also has additional hyperlinks for a Padlet, a strategy guide, and a back to school assignment, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Here's what your participant guide looks like. You will be forced to make a copy. That way, everyone can type in it on their own. Once you open it up, you will notice that your participant guide has various items, different sections that we will also explore as a part of this session. Now, before we get started, we're going to take you on an activity called Think and Share. And during this activity, before we even type anything, the first thing that I want you to do is just recall a meaningful academic experience that you had as a student. In that academic experience, think about the teacher who was involved and think about their role in that experience. Also focus on the qualities of that teacher and think about the qualities that you share as the same as that teacher. If you notice on your screen, there is a QR code. There is also a hyperlink on your participant guide for the Think and Share. Once you click on that link or use your QR code, you will have the opportunity to go to our Think and Share Padlet. I want you to focus on column number 1. We'll go back to column 2 and 3 later in our session. Once you have provided your information on the Padlet, feel free to go back throughout this session to see what some of your other beginning teacher colleagues have written. And now, Devin is going to go ahead and take us into culturally responsive pedagogy.
Thank you, Kim. So today, the first thing before we get into the culturally responsive classroom and all that stuff, let's talk about what exactly culturally responsive pedagogy means. On your screen, we have 3 different definitions of culturally responsive pedagogy from Gloria Latson-Billings, Zaretta Hammond, and educators team at Understood. What we would like for you to do is to take a moment and read through each of these definitions. After you read through each of these definitions, refer back to your participants guide, and there's a place for you to jot down some common terms that you see used in each of these definitions, and also create your own definition of what culturally responsive pedagogy means to you based on these definitions. So as you can see, culturally responsive pedagogy seems to be a style of teaching that focuses on student learning that integrates their cultural experiences. And now Kim is going to talk about what culturally responsive pedagogy is not.
Think about the key terms from the definitions that you just wrote. The 3 different definitions that you've read and the commonalities. Now let's talk about the mistakes that we make in defining culturally responsive pedagogy. 1, multicultural education. Celebration of diversity is extremely important, and it's critical to highlighting the cultures and the traditions of one's background. High functioning classrooms and climates, they thrive when children see items on the walls or in the classroom that represent them. But again, it does not have an impact on their cognitive learning. Only motivating students of color. This leads into bias. We feel that being culturally responsive means that we're targeting only one group of students. Remember, it's an approach for all students, not just one particular. When we respect the culture of poverty, we want to be sensitive to our students' needs, but at the same time, we don't want to give praise and we don't want to focus on the fact that our students may be coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds. We want to focus on ways that we can connect with them, that we can bring their learning and their traditions and cultures together. Bringing a focus on their poverty is not a culturally responsive classroom. And lastly, social justice education. Now, don't get me wrong. We want all of our students to be critically conscious. We want them to be aware of what is going on in the world and understand that things are not fair, but dig into why aren't they fair. But again, culturally responsive pedagogy is an approach to learning and teaching. It is not a curriculum and it's not a classroom. So we want to make sure, again, that we're not teaching a specific curriculum to the students, but it's the style of teaching that we're using. And so now Dr. Brent is going to take us into understanding the classroom just a little bit more.
Thank you, Kim. Our culturally responsive classrooms are inclusive. That means that you make everyone feel welcome. You stand at the door and greet every student every morning, or if you're online, when they come and log on, you welcome them. You're glad to see them. You may start your day with a morning meeting or a way to check in to let students know that you're glad they're there, that everyone feels welcome. You focus on achievement. You have high expectations for students. You have rigorous lessons. You make sure that they do those lessons, complete those lessons, even if you have to front load sometimes. If you have a lesson coming up and you know that some vocabulary that will be in the lesson that some kids may not know, then you can front load them. You can pull them aside and just go over those words so that they are more comfortable with the lesson when you present it. But you hold them accountable and have them do the work. You connect with students. You get to know them. Who are they? What do they like? When are their birthdays? And let them know you. Let them see that you're a real person, of what things you like. Perhaps you have some things in common, but you connect with them so that they feel comfortable in your classroom, because when they do, they're more open to receiving from you. You have growth mindset. So as we reflect on our practice, on what went well that day, what didn't go well, we reflect and say, okay, well, how can I make that better? What are my next steps? What do I need to do now? we keep an open mind and always seek to improve. And then hold students responsible for their learning. They have a part in their learning too. So you make sure they do the work and you don't buy into, as Kim was saying, about the culture of poverty, because this child comes from poverty, he doesn't have to do the work. No, education is his way out. So hold them responsible. And you may want them to keep a data notebook where they can keep track of their assessments to see how well they've done and see if they're going up or down. And for younger students, like in elementary school, they have their reading level. If they're reading on a level D and they need to be on a level P by the end of the school year, then help them keep track of that so they can see, yes, I'm making progress. I need to keep reading, but hold students responsible. And now it's Dina's turn.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Brent. So now we know what a culturally responsive classroom looks like. Let's look at the culturally responsive teacher. A culturally responsive teacher empowers students to share their thoughts. This teacher facilitates discussions where all student voices are respected and heard. Teacher talk and student talk should be equal. The culturally responsive teacher integrates diverse work and study practices. She or he allows students a variety of situations to work in different groups, different peer groups, and trying out different roles in the group. They foster an environment where students feel comfortable taking risks and knowing they're safe. Culturally responsive teachers understand students' learning needs and styles, so they plan lessons and activities for all students to succeed through a variety of different products: writing, movement, presentations, singing, cartoons. The culturally responsive teacher understands the demographics of the majority of the students in their building. They get to know their families and their families' cultures. Invite them into your classroom to share with the rest of the students. Go to school events, go to their recitals and games, do home visits. The culturally responsive teacher believes all children can learn and want to learn. But they don't only believe this, but they make sure they show and tell their children this. They praise their children. They help their children become good problem solvers. Sometimes all it takes for a student to find their confidence is to know that there is an adult that believes in them and won't give up on them and will push them. The culturally responsive teacher addresses personal biases and assumptions by altering behavior, practices, and structures. Sometimes this is one of the hardest things to do, to self-reflect and know yourself. You don't have to understand everything that's going on in a student's life, but you just need to love and accept them, making them feel like a respected member of your class community. And now Dr. Brent is going to share.
Okay, we are going to take a look at Tiffany May's video, and she calls herself Miss May. And while you watch the video, we want you to look at the video and see what she does to intentionally build and maintain strong relationships with her students. And you will go back to your Padlet, and in column 2, you'll jot down some notes about the video. So sit back and relax and enjoy Miss May.
Hey guys, it's Miss May. Hey. Happy Friday. Guys, I just want to say welcome to my channel. If you are a subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. If you are not a subscriber, please click on that subscription button so you do not miss a video of mine, especially the videos that are coming up. I am starting a classroom management series, and today I'm starting that series off with building healthy relationships. I cannot stress enough to you guys how important it is to build positive relationships with your students. I'm not saying just build them with this little group over here, about building relationships with every single kid that you have. So many ask me, Miss May, how do I build those relationships? Well, for starters, when you build these relationships, you have to be consistent. And I mean consistent in everything, every tip that I give you today. You have to be consistent. You can't just do it on the first day of school, because the first day of school is always refreshing and rewarding because it's all fresh, it's all new. We've had our rest from the summer, so we're all ready to go. And then after that first week of school, maybe two, we let it go because we're tired, or it's too much, or I don't have time. And I can't stress to you enough how important it is to build those relationships. I don't care how naughty a kid is. I don't care how good and phenomenal a kid is. It is all about building a relationship with every single kid. So I'm gonna give you a few tips on how to build those relationships. Tip number one for building those relationships is stand at your door every single morning. I can remember from my very first year, I always stood and I greeted every single one of my students as they came into my classroom with a high five, a handshake, a hug, and most importantly, with that smile on my face. You don't understand how important it is that student knows how glad you are that they are in your classroom. Even if you are having an extremely bad day, you gotta leave it at the door and you gotta put on that Hollywood and say, always tell my kids when they come through the door, I'm so glad you're here. I missed you. Usually like during spring, like for instance, with spring break just passed for us, you know, that Monday morning, I told my kiddos when they walked in, I missed you, so glad you're here. And it makes them feel good. Even if they don't smile back some mornings, it's okay, because it lets me know that something's going on with them and it's my duty to figure out what it is. So stand at that door, not just the first day of school, not just the first week of school, not even just the first month because you're feeling all good, but every single day. Stand at that doorway. Let them know how glad you are, how excited, I will say, how excited you are that they're there. My next thing about building relationships is definitely do morning meetings. I don't start my days at all academically until we have morning meeting, and that's where we sit in a circle, we greet each other, we make eye contact with one another. At the beginning of the year, I teach them different handshakes that they can do to each other. I just kind of show them what that looks like, and we're consistent with that every single morning, and the kids look forward to it because it just lets them know that their friend next to them at that time is so glad that they're there. I also make sure that they're not sitting next to the same person all the time. We greet, you greet many different friends all week long. So they sit in a circle, we greet each other, and then I let a couple of friends share some news that they want to share. And I usually, at the end, I participate in those morning meetings as well, because I think it's very, very crucial and very important. So standing at the doorway, morning meetings, and then be relatable. Don't be fake, don't pretend, don't act like you're better than these kids. Don't think you're more than what you are. Be relatable to these kids. I can't tell you how excited my students are for me to talk about my niece and my nephews and hear stories, when I went out to eat with friends, or, when I FaceTime with my mom or dad. I can't explain or stress enough to you how much they appreciate those stories because I'm relatable to them. I try to get to know them as much as I can, try to see what their likes are, what their dislikes are. Um, but just be real, be relatable. Don't be fake because kids can spot a fakie like nobody's business. Don't be fake, be relatable. Um, and then that leads to my next one, getting to know the kids is eat lunch with them. I can't tell you how many times a week I eat with kiddos. It's all about, they want to eat with me, they'll ask me, I'll tell them. A lot of times I'll just say, you know what, we're eating together today. Or you, or this table's eating with me today. And I eat with them, and I tell you what, you know, it, it's heartbreaking when you hear a teacher say, I don't have time to eat with the kid, or that's my lunchtime, I don't have time for that. It makes me sad because I make that time. I make that time for those kiddos because sometimes you are all that these kids have to talk to pour all their unhappiness out to, or even to pour all their happiness out to, because sometimes you have kids who go home and parents don't want to listen to anything, they're too busy, they give them electronics or materialistic things to keep them going. So I can't stress enough to you how much I eat with my kids. I eat with my first day of the week, then I pick friends throughout the week to eat with as well. And that is a great time to hear stories, to get to know things that they like, things that they dislike. It's just a great way to build that bond with kids. I can't stress to you enough. And honestly, I enjoy eating with them because their stories can be hilarious. And then I also just feel like they need somebody, and I want them to feel like they can come to Miss May. And so I can't stress enough to you, eat with those kiddos. Don't make it, I just think it's important that kids want you, they know that you want to eat with them. And I always make it a point that my kids um, know that, you know what, Miss May wants to eat with me today. And that's what I'll say, I want to eat with you today. Let's have lunch together, lunch date. Or I'll just point to this table, lunch date. Or I'll point to this person, lunch date. And the beam and gleam, their face just beams with sunshine because you can tell they're so excited. So tips to build those relationships: stand at the door, have morning meetings, eat with them, be relatable. And then I would say my last one would be praise. Just praise, praise, praise. Praise, as much as you can. I'm always having positive notes on my students' desk, always calling them out and just making them feel like they're just, this amazing human being, which they are, but making them really feel like they're this movie star. Praise, 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 praise. Even just a tap on the shoulder, good job. High five when I walk past them. Awesome. Just be consistent with those things, and I guarantee you, as the year goes on, when a kid does start acting out or does do something behavior wise that isn't appropriate, and you call them out on it and you talk to them about it, they're going to be very disappointed in themselves. They're going to feel bad that they have let you down. So guys, I have a story to tell you, but I am going to tell this story when I get home because my battery is getting low. So I will talk to you very soon. Stay tuned. Don't go. Bye. And so welcome back. I am so sorry and apologize.
Okay, we hope you enjoyed Miss May and you got some tips, some strategies you can use to help build those relationships. Remember to jot them down in your Padlet. Okay, so now we are going to take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. On the left, these are human needs that everyone needs. And on the right, these are focused on needs of children in school. So just take a few moments and read over those pyramids. All right. We're going to focus on the children's needs, the hierarchy of school needs of school children. And we start at the base with physiological needs. So these are basic needs, and these are mostly out of our control. We can't control where the student sleeps or if they have clean clothes or what goes on at home. But for elementary teachers, you can help if a child comes to school hungry, you know he or she hadn't had breakfast. Allow that child to eat. Usually kids either go to the cafeteria in pre-COVID and they eat in the classroom now and their breakfast left over. Please allow the child to eat. For middle and high school teachers, if you know kids come hungry, you can have some breakfast bars on hand or something, because a hungry child, that's going to interfere with his learning, his or her learning. Safety is the next tier. So we want to make sure our children are safe, and that's not just physically safe, but emotionally safe, that your class is a safe space for them, that they know you're going to take care of them when they get there. You have procedures in place, you have routines, and students really love routines, and you have to be consistent with them so that every day they know what to expect, because that helps them to relax a bit because they know what's coming and they're more apt to learn. Belonging, and Ms. May touched on that a whole lot. She helped her students feel like they belonged by welcoming them at the door each morning, by giving them a high five, smiling. So you want them to feel like they belong. So please do greet your students. We're back in school face-to-face. Stand at the door and greet them. I know you can't give hugs right now, but still make them feel like they are welcome. That morning meeting where everyone has a chance to speak helps them feel like they belong to the group, that what they have to contribute is important. And then the esteem. Ms. May referred to praising a lot. And yes, I would challenge you to give specific praise. Praise them for, oh, you did a good job of showing your work, how you solved that math problem today. You did a good job of interpreting that paragraph. Be specific with your praise, but do praise them and be positive. Give good feedback. And then the self-actualization, that means your student is ready to learn because the foundation has been built. So that child is relaxed, is open, and is ready to learn from you. So we always remember what Maya Angelou said, that people may forget what you said or what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. So build those positive relationships. And now we will hear from Devin.
Thank you, Dr. Britt. So relationships are very important because they affect teachers, students, and your classroom culture. As for teachers, relationships are important because it gets you the opportunity to truly know the individuals in your classrooms as people and not just students. And also as a teacher, it helps you become more of a reflective practitioner. It gives you an opportunity to think about, are you really truly getting to know your students? What are some other ways you can connect with them and things like that? For your students, relationships are important because it helps them learn to connect with the teacher and truly try their best because they know that you're invested in them. Once you've got that relationship with them, once you've gotten to know them, and you guys have truly, genuinely gotten to know one another, the students become invested in you, which in return makes them want to do more work and be successful in your classroom. And lastly, the importance of relationships impact their classroom culture because it creates a positive, healthy learning environment because everyone's invested. You're invested in the students are invested in you, everyone's working hard, and that gives you, the teacher, the opportunity to truly focus on their successes in the class. Pass it over to Dina to discuss Child as a Champion.
Thanks, Devin. So now we're going to watch a TED Talk featuring Rita Pierson. Rita Pierson started in education in 1972 and sadly passed in 2013. She was an advocate for schools and communities. She was a positive force for teachers and students. She taught elementary, middle school. She was a special educator. She was a counselor, a testing coordinator, and an assistant principal. She is very down to earth, and she tells it like it is. After you watch this video, we're going to ask you to go back to your Think and Share Padlet and answer the question, how can you be a champion for your students? Enjoy.
I have spent my entire life either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reform from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson. The kids should learn it. I should teach it, they should learn it, case closed. Well, I said to her, you know, kids don't learn from people they don't like. She said, that's just a bunch of hooey. And I said to her, well, your year is gonna be long and arduous, dear. Needless to say, it was. Some people think that you can either have it in you to build a relationship or you don't. I think Stephen Covey had the right idea. He said you ought to just throw in a few simple things, like seeking first to understand as opposed to being understood. Simple things like apologizing. You ever thought about that? Tell a kid you're sorry, they're in shock. I taught a lesson once on ratios. I'm not real good with math, but I was working on it. And I got back and looked at that teacher edition. I taught the whole lesson wrong. So I came back to class the next day and I said, look, guys, I need to apologize. I taught the whole lesson wrong. I'm so sorry. They said, that's okay, Miss Pierson. You were so excited. We just let you go. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? And it was difficult. It was awfully hard. How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class. Because I am the best teacher and you are the best students, they put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise, you just have to strut. And I gave him a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so, I gave a quiz, 20 questions. Student missed 18. I put a +2 on this paper and a big smiley face. He said, Miss Pierson, is this an F? I said, yes. He said, then why'd you put a smiley face? I said, because you on the roll. You got 2 right, you didn't miss them all. I said, and when we review this, won't you do better? He said, yes, ma'am, I can do better. You see, -18 sucks all the life out of you. +2 said, I ain't all bad. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. And kids can be cruel. And so she kept those things in her desk, and years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know it. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
So go be a champion. Kim's going to take us out and tell you about your summer assignment.
Here's a famous quote by Benjamin Franklin. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. But if you involve me, I'll learn. And so as we get ready to close out our session for building positive relationships with students, we want to invite you to a little summer assignment. It won't take you long. A part of this assignment is ways to build classroom culture and positive relationships with your students and in your classroom. We've provided you on your participant guide a link for activities for building relationships. In this assignment, you will think about something you can do every single day for the first week of school. This activity can be 5 minutes, it can be 15 minutes. But what can you do to build classroom culture and to build relationships with your students? The activity can be something as simple as, pulling a name from a bag and each student having to tell something interesting about themselves. The purpose is to, again, focus on relationships. Rita Pierson just told us that connections help us thrive, relationships help us thrive. So what are you going to do to be that champion in your classroom? Again, on behalf of the beginning teacher mentor team from Durham Public Schools, we want to thank you for joining us today. Please feel free to contact us at our email addresses that are listed on your screen. If you have any questions, if you need clarification on anything, or if you just want to send us something or possibly share your activity for your first week of school with us. Again, thank you and enjoy the rest of your session.